Welcome to Thursday. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Uganda. I'm Olive Monica Najuma. Now, yesterday we did share a story coming in from South Korea where the country's president had issued a martial law into the country that he was later forced to recall. Now, as news stands, the country's defense minister has resigned and the new defense minister has been appointed by the president. Now, according to the president, the former defense minister is the one who suggested a martial law into the country that had many opposition and also government leaders contest. And within 24 hours, it had been done away with. So now they have a new defense minister and the former has resigned. The new defense minister is the country's ambassador to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That's the news coming in from Asia. But now coming back here to Uganda, I wonder what stories my colleagues have been following up. I'll start with Jerome Paul. Good morning, Jerome.
Well, good morning to you, Olive, and good morning to our dear viewer. Thursday is here. We are here to go again. I'm hoping all of you are already geared up for the first weekend of the month of December because it is coming closer. Speaking of the stories that really made news for me is that the Uganda Human Rights Commission head coming out to say that we need strict regulations on the churches or the pastors within the country. And this report is looking at the fact that according to Mariam Wangadia, pastors have started manipulating or have been manipulating what you could call their followers. And in this regard, she feels that at least the government should be very intentional to at least expedite a law that is going to regulate churches, the Pentecostal churches, because of the so many testimonies and of course, not good testimonies by the way, but because of the so many stories or dark stories that we hear from those who are attached to quite a number of religious denominations, and more so stories that are highly driven by the kinds of acts the men of God direct them to do. And this manipulation is even seen on social media with the various videos that are circulating. So really looking into that, we wait to see how the government will respond. But from the Human Rights Commission perspective, this is what they feel the government should do.
It's long overdue, Jeremy, if you ask me. But you see, Uganda is a free market economy, and I believe that also applies to churches. Ideally, no one should just be forming a church just because they can. Every day you wake up and someone just says, the Spirit told me to. And there is a church. I don't know which criteria they follow to start these churches, but then they manipulate followers, they rip off followers. So I hear what Wangadia is saying, and it's honestly the right move. But remember, we also have leaders who say, touch not the anointed. You remember when the street preachers were taken off the streets of Kampala, and one man had to pay for that.
The issue is, how do you know that this particular person is anointed? Because it does seem like everyone believes they are anointed and they are the true men of God. So that is one of the reasons as to why Miss Wangadia feels that we really need a law that is going to put some regulations, some strict regulations, and not to entirely close churches,
but let them go through a sieve of some sort.
So that we get to know that someone did not just come out from nowhere and claim to be anointed, and then he or she is starting up
a church. The truth is, that's going to be hard because we've let that operate in this country for God knows how many years.
It's going to be hard because we believe it's going to be hard.
But
if we are very intentional, because I've seen Rwanda is one of those countries that we can look at where the government was very intentional to close down quite a number of churches, and the reason was the manipulation was top of it.
No, hear me out. Yes, it is a good move and it can be done. But then we have leaders that like to manipulate such people because these people give them numbers, the numbers that give them votes, okay? So you'll find two leaders, one saying let them get off the street and another saying leave them alone. And of course, who will people follow? I mean, Uganda, people are poor. They need someone to give them comfort, to give them hope. So they will say, you are trying basically to disrupt the Lord's work.
You know, my worry though is that many of the men of God are gaining. You know, yeah, they are gaining wealth at the expense of their followers.
That's
and
true.
The followers are not gaining out of it. And not to even say,
who has a home that has an elevator inside.
Now you can easily imagine.
You've seen those videos?
I've seen those on social media.
Oh my God.
And we've seen quite a number of videos where the men of God are coming through a huge entourage. It's more like a motorcade of a president.
Yes.
And one may wonder, is this, you know, kind of a showbiz business, or is it something
we
like...
We also have men of God that have been asking their congregants to, if you love me, you will give $100 towards the buying or the purchase of my new car. And the car, you'll find that it is a brand new, maybe 2024 Range Rover. Most of the congregation, they cannot even afford to buy a bicycle, but then they're paying $100 towards the purchase of a car for their pastor. Anyway, Robert, as what do they call them?
The pastors,
the
PKs.
The PKs. As a PK, good morning, and what's your view on this?
Good morning to you, and how are you doing today?
I'm fine, how are you?
I'm fine. I hope our viewer is also doing fine. Thank you for waking up with us. Really appreciate that. Now, our constitution is very clear. There is freedom of worship in this country, and you can only take those people on crimes committed. But you will find it hard to regulate the freedom of worship. Otherwise, you may have to also, you'll find that there are things you don't understand. Now, if you come for a religion, are you also going to focus on the people that are practicing witchcraft? Because there is a level you won't understand. That's why Father Rukodo, though he wasn't the first initiator of that bill, that was the Religious and Faith-Based Organizations Bill, didn't see the light of day. It was very, very hard. And Sonko talked about our brothers the other side. Well, there are so many things that people are doing different from us. The question is, why are they doing them different?
Because their leaders maybe
and now I heard you people talk about men of God. You see, you can't serve a successful God and he does not make you successful globally.
Robert, help me understand. You serve a successful God. I hear you on that. I believe our God is, you know, a God of all riches.
Yeah.
How come these riches in most churches go to one person or a certain group of people in the church, and the congregation is literally grappling with poverty? So is God selective? So
if you're in a church and you entered that church and your finances are still as the way you came, you're still battling, then there's a problem. There's a problem.
With the pastor? Not
with the pastor. It could be you, the person. Because there are principles that, do you tithe? You know? Do you bring in an offertory?
Okay, Robert, I want us to take this away from spirituality and look at it logically. Yes. Why is it that most of the crimes, most of the manipulation is in one denomination as compared to others? We have other religious denominations like the Catholics, the Anglicans, the Muslims, and many more. Why is it that most of the manipulation cases reported, the noise and everything is in regard to one religious denomination? Don't you really think that it needs to be guided to a degree?
I agree with you. There are some men of God that are very exploitive, and others are no longer doing what their calling was, but have chosen to exploit people. That I agree, that yes, we have those challenges. And we must also look at how does one, let's call a spade a spade. When you look at how some of these, the genesis of the born-agains in this country and some of the changes that have come along, but that does not give guarantee that you're going to regulate how people worship their God, how people do certain things in their faith. Just hold those that commit crimes. If it's extortion, arrest that person for extortion. If it is human trafficking, if it is anything, because our constitution facilitates for every crime that is committed. Our constitution, our penal code are very clear. If it is theft, take them on theft.
Well,
but
Robert,
don't come with a regulation to regulate how people are going to worship, how people are going to set up places of worship. Things of the spirit cannot be sorted.
Robert, I like that you're using the Constitution as I like that you're using the Constitution as your defense. And when Wangadia and maybe Jerome and myself suggest that there should be a regulation, it's beautiful because the same Constitution has been touched and changed a couple of times where there was need. And this cannot be the only time. So if there is need for it to be amended and there is a regulation.
Talking about a right. You see, this is a right.
We are not saying people should not.
Right to worship, Robert, and you can't regulate.
We are not saying people shouldn't worship. We are saying regulate. It's like when you say people should start schools, but let there be regulations that guide these schools. This is the conversation we are having. No one is saying that Ugandans should not worship whichever way they want, but there should be regulations because people are being ripped off.
The fact is you're going up a skyscraper without a lift. I can assure you. And you will never make it.
Let me go up the skyscraper that has a lift, and that is local news.
Well, we'll begin with President Yoweri Museveni, who has directed zonal industrial skilling hubs to incorporate the 4-acre model of farming as one of the courses offered to the youth. This, the president said, while he was in Karamoja sub-region. He said the country's quest for a middle-income status through commercial farming, which is one of the pillars of the NRM development plan. This was during the commissioning of the Karamoja Zonal Industrial Skilling Hub in Napak district, where he supported with 5 million each in their endeavors. He lauded the government of the People's Republic of China for the support always rendered to Uganda in terms of soft loans and grants for the country's development. The president echoed this shortly after launching Phase 5 of the National Backbone Infrastructure in Moroto to cater for network stability in Karamoja sub-region. The project, according to the Minister for ICT and National Guidance, Dr. Chris Baryomunsi, is aimed at making Karamoja modern through adding it to the national digital network. He later committed additional funds to support the peace endeavors and development of Karamoja sub-region. During his address in Moroto district yesterday afternoon, Museveni emphasized the urgent need to locate more resources to address the growing issue of water scarcity in the region. The battle against the Allied Democratic Forces in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo is intense, but the Mountain Division and Operation Suja Commander Major General Richard Otto's command has given the joint troops a boost, and they are fighting harder than ever. The UPDF and FRADC forces led by Major General Richard Otto are taking the fight to them. The Uganda Human Rights Commission chairperson has directed attention to the connection between human rights and environmental degradation. This follows a severe impact of recent environmental disasters on vulnerable populations and highlighted the inequalities that merge in the wake of these crises. The remarks were made ahead of the commemoration of the International Human Rights Celebration next week. And finally, from the local scene, the State House Anti-Corruption Unit has convened a key engagement as part of several activities running under Uganda's Anti-Corruption Week. The event aims to strengthen the country's efforts in the fight against corruption. In attendance was the Inspector General of Government, Betty Kamya, who commended this engagement as timely and crucial in the fight against corruption, an issue that continues to pose significant challenges to governance and economic development.
Now moving on to the international scene, the French government has collapsed after Prime Minister Michel Barnier was ousted in a no-confidence vote. Members of parliament voted overwhelmingly in support of the motion against him just 3 months after he was appointed by President Emmanuel Macron. Opposition parties had tabled the motion after the former Brexit negotiator controversially used special powers to force through his budget without a vote. It marks the first time the country's government has collapsed in a no-confidence vote since 1962. The development will further France's political instability after snap elections in summer led to no single group having a majority in parliament. Members of parliament were required to either vote yes or abstain from Wednesday's vote, with 288 votes needed for the motion to pass. A total of 331 voted in support of the motion. Barnier is now obliged to present the resignation of his government, and the budget which triggered his downfall is defunct. However, he is likely to stay on as caretaker prime minister while Macron chooses a successor. Moving on to South Korea. South Korea's President Yoon Suk has accepted the resignation of the country's defense minister Kim Yong and nominated the country's ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Choi, as the new defense minister. The president's office confirmed the nomination of Choi, a former army general, as the new defense minister on Thursday, South Korea's Yonhap news agency reports. Yonhap said that Kim had proposed to President Yoon that he declare martial law on Tuesday night, a move that was quickly cut short after South Korea's parliament voted for Yoon to reverse his decision. Yoon's nomination of a new defense minister is his first official act since revoking the declaration of martial law in the early hours of Wednesday morning. The reversal sent hundreds of South Korean troops who had briefly stormed into the National Assembly compound in Seoul back to their barracks. Now moving on. At least 79 people have died from an unknown disease that is causing flu-like symptoms in Southwestern Democratic Republic of Congo, this according to the country's health ministry. The health ministry says the majority of people who have died are between the ages of 15 and 18. More than 300 people have been infected, with patients exhibiting symptoms like fever, headaches, runny noses and coughs, breathing difficulties and anemia. Response teams have been sent to Kwango province, specifically the Panzi Health Zone, where the disease is most common, to manage cases and investigate the nature of the disease. Siforian Manzanza, a civil society leader, told Reuters news agency the situation was worrying as the number of infected people continues to rise. Panzi is a rural health zone, so there is a problem with the supply of medicines, he said. A World Health Organization Africa region official told the BBC they have dispatched a team to the remote area to collect samples for lab investigations. And with that, we come to the end of our international news. Now let's have a look at the press review.
Well, new developments coming in from the marriage bill has seen the clerics outraged because of the same issue. Now, church lists 6 clauses that offend Christian values that may not sit well with the church if this bill becomes law. Then the Toto Festival nearer to register children and issue birth certificates as Museveni launches Industrial Hub in Karamoja, pictorial of the president at the launch of the Industrial Hub. Then the Defense Minister speaks out on American spy plane. Mobende Sacred Tree kills fortune seekers. That report is in the New Vision. The victims had traveled from different parts of the country for an annual celebration, traditional Thanksgiving and worship, which was scheduled for today. Now, Semakade lines up 20 lawyers to battle private prosecution. There was a legal showdown at Buganda Road Chief Magistrate's Court yesterday after over 20 lawyers went to represent Uganda Law Society President Isaac Semakade. Now, the Daily Monitor. They wanted to kill me. This is my story. In a statement shared with the Daily Monitor by a legal firm on her instructions, Justice Esther Chisache, who fled the country recently, sheds light on the issues making her lose sleep, including threats to her life, delays in hearing 3 petitions she filed regarding, among others, formation of a tribunal to handle her case and government refusal to let her retire. Then a star is made. Aaron Kiza makes lemonade out of Kiza Besige lemons. That is in the Daily Monitor. Now, matters finance. Moneylenders and government lock horns over interest rate. The moneylenders across the country yesterday rejected the new monthly cap on interest rate. That report is in the Daily Monitor. Now, DM today, essential vehicle inspections for safe up-country travel. And in the other news, people with disabilities share their triumphs as Chambago University's 8 PhD graduates speak ahead of their graduation ceremony. Now, while teachers are retiring in droves, many schools countrywide are currently grappling with shortage of teachers as many quit the profession for greener pastures before clocking the mandatory age of 60. The Daily Nation in Kenya highlights members of parliament say scheme opaque and has all the hallmarks of Uhuru's regime's 663 billion Kenyan shillings MES scandal. Now, this is in regards to the SHA equipment plan cartel. According to the Daily Nation, they report that SHA equipment plan cartel-like is according to what the House team says. Now, shop till you drop. Bargains galore as 5-day nation shopping festival starts. Read about that in the Daily Nation. Now, lawmakers want order on schools closure lifted. And then also tragedy, a varsity student death at hostel and forced suicide notes. More of that is in the Daily Nation. Now, in the world news, South Korea leader faces ouster after martial law debacle. And then in the reprieve, members of parliament plan to reverse regulations seeking to raise ID fees. And also SGR Junior linked to be a game changer. This is according to what the Citizen is reporting this Thursday in Tanzania. How repainting project is set to transform Zanzibar's stone town. That report is in the Citizen. Also in matters Africa relations, G20 braces for Trump's White House return. Then Tanzanian wins East African Innovation Award. Who is that Tanzanian? Find more details about her and her win. Then Warioba cautions ahead of 2025 general election. That report is in the Citizen. Now, matters regarding the SGR and the Julius Nyerere International Airport link to be a game changer. The government is planning to extend SGR services to Julius Nyerere International Airport in Dar es Salaam, with industry players saying the move will significantly improve passenger convenience. And that does it for our press review this Thursday.
Well, we will take a short break right about now, and when we come back, we'll be speaking matters 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. We'll take a closer look at alcohol, physical violence, among others. So stick around and we see how alcohol regulation could actually help us curb the danger that is gender-based violence.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
At this time, I would like to thank you personally for sharing your precious time with me. I hope I have brought some enjoyment.
And what's your view on this?
Good morning to you, and how are you doing today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine. I hope our viewers are also doing fine. Thank you for waking up with us. Really appreciate that. Now, our constitution is very clear. There is freedom of worship in this country, and you can only take those people on crimes committed. But you will find it hard to regulate the freedom of worship. Otherwise, you may have to also, you'll find that there are things you don't understand. Now, if you come for a religion, are you also going to focus on the people that are practicing witchcraft? Because there is a level you won't understand. That's why Father Rukodo, though he wasn't the first initiator of that bill, that was the Religious and Faith-Based Organizations Bill, didn't see the light of day. It was very, very hard. And Sonko talked about our brothers the other side. Well, there are so many things that people are doing different from us. The question is, why are they doing them different?
Because their leaders maybe
And now I heard you people talk about men of God. You see, you can't serve a successful God and he does not make you successful globally.
Robert, help me understand. No, help me understand. You serve a successful God. I hear you on that. I believe our God is, you know, a God of all riches.
Yeah.
How come these riches in most churches go to one person or a certain group of people in the church, and the congregation is literally grappling with poverty? So is God selective?
So if you're in a church and you entered that church and your finances are still as the way you came, you're still battling, then there's a problem. There's a problem.
With the pastor?
Not with the pastor, it could be you, the person. Because there are principles that, do you tithe? You know? Do you bring in an offertory?
Okay, Robert, I want us to take this away from spirituality and look at it logically.
Yes.
Why is it that most of the crimes, most of the manipulation is in one denomination as compared to others? We have other religious denominations like the Catholics, the Anglicans, the Muslims, and many more. Why is it that most of the manipulation cases reported, the noise and everything is in regard to one religious denomination? Don't you really think that it needs to be guided to a degree?
I agree with you. There are some men of God that are very exploitive, and others are no longer doing what their calling was, but have chosen to exploit people. That I agree, that yes, we have those challenges. And we must also look at how does one, let's call a spade a spade. When you look at how some of these, the genesis of the born agains in this country and some of the changes that have come along, but that does not give guarantee that you're going to regulate how people worship their God, how people do certain things in their faith. Just hold those that commit crimes. If it's extortion, arrest that person for extortion. If it is human trafficking, if it is anything, because our constitution facilitates for every crime that is committed. Our constitution, our penal code are very clear. If it is theft, take them on theft. But
Robert,
don't come with a regulation to regulate how people are going to worship, how people are going to set up places of worship. Things of the spirit cannot be sorted.
Robert, I like that you're using the constitution I like that you're using the constitution as your defense.
Truth. A world where every story matters. There exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades,